Welcome to this week's episode of Roll4Recap here on Roll4Respawn. I will be your host today, Bright, and I am joined here by Brett and Tony, who are regulars on the cast of Breaking Characters. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So these are some familiar faces. So if you guys want to kind of just quickly reintroduce your characters, and then we'll get right into it.
Green before mean, if you don't mind.
Okay. All right. We'll start with Greenie. Hi, I play Nash, Nashville Finnegan Thompson, for those of you keeping track of names. If so, you're doing the Lord's work. Thank you. It gets more complicated as we go. Nash is half-orc barbarian, got a fancy mustache and a pompadour, wears, booty shorts and a mesh top. It's workout gear basically for him. Mm-hmm. He's an ex-fighter turned convict, now ex-con turned bounty hunter. If you didn't get lost on that, you're going to have a great time here. He's also the heart of the party in kind of a very interesting way. Not what you would expect from the barbarian usually, but Nash brings it. He brings the wholesome.
On the flip side, I play Boston Jones, the human fighter paladin, who met our Nashville in prison, and is the person who introduced him to the line of work that they have, bounty hunting, and is here for the most part. And in these episodes especially, he's just here for the most part, just trying to live best he can.
Wonderful. All right. And so in this episode, we're going to be going over episodes 29 through 35. This arc is a pretty short one, but it is a really important one. So if you want to get all of the intel, you can watch them on our YouTube. We have all of them available. So you can watch them there to get all of the intricate deets and all of the inside jokes that are said. But in these sessions, the party gathers information about the weird worlds that they've delved into, including information about the anti-tech cult, underground forbidden research in Auroran, and they face challenges with a malfunctioning robot and navigate personal relationships. The party also works to deal with the bureaucratic workings of interstate governments, and they get tattoos and explore different facets of Boston and Ramita's life, and learn more about the bounty on their rogue Rick. Amid these family reunions and personal revelations, the party prepares to meet Charlotte, a crucial contact in Auroran, as they delve deeper into gathering intel on the mysterious cult. So, Brett, if you want to start us off with episode 29.
Certainly. I'm going to be discussing session 29 called Loose Ends. This is a episode focusing mostly on Ramita, Fen, and Baldric, as I was out that episode and Nash was dealing with his parole officer. During this time, Fen summons their familiar for the first time at Black Crow, which freaks out Baldric a little bit, but things check over. After they all go to sleep, they have breakfast. Nash gets a rental to go meet with his parole officer. It goes okay. It's a little tense, but he learns some of the boundaries he has to keep his license as a professional cowboy, a bounty hunter, but also to make sure he doesn't break any more laws. And meanwhile, the three upper not classmen, but the upper financially, Rick, Fen, and Ramita, go and have a conversation with the former professor at Aurora in the college that Fenrana went to. And discover a lot of interesting things that were potentially stolen from this retired professor involving Residuum and Whitestone, and her personal journals. A lot of interesting stuff. A great watch. I would recommend.
It's really interesting because when they're leaving that person, which they call Hillmaker, when they're leaving Hillmaker's space, they're very much like, hey, all of this knowledge that you've shared with us is dangerous, and you could, if anyone comes calling, you could die. So, maybe go into hiding. That's the kind of level of information that they got.
Mm-hmm. Blacked out documents, sort of thing.
Yes. Stuff that is not great. We're going to talk about session 30, Ghosts of Past, Present, and Future. So Boston takes off. We sort of shine the light on Boston as he's taking off to the red light district and gathering some information about local bounties and the goings on in the underworld. And we learn about a local hotshot worldwide level bounty hunter named Ghost that I'm sure won't come in at all. And you shouldn't remember their name. They're not important ever. And Nash, however, finishes up their conversation with the parole officer and then is worried, keeps seeing these posters about a tech competition in town. And because they've been dealing with the anti-tech cult so much, he's worried that that's a hot spot for some sort of terrorist attack. And so he goes there. And the rest of the party sort of follows him / meanders their way there. Each person finds their way a little bit differently, but they all sort of gather there and watch a tech competition and see a certain winner, Amelia, and Boston and Nash sort of work together to schmooze and give some beer to some of the competitors and things like that. And Boston gains sort of a contact in Amelia. Ramita comes to an idea of they only have a certain amount of days that they can be in this city state. And so they're trying to figure out ways to extend their visa. And so they're asking Boston to hire them on as a bounty hunter. So the number of bounty hunters may grow or it may not. And Boston gets some more information from his church leader, Tobias, as a little like final tidbit there.
To be honest, that whole tech festival that we went to was really cool. It was kind of more done as a demonstration of what the next big braids were, and they're going to receive a grant, I believe, from Auroran, right, to go to the college, or it was a large sum of money that they potentially could.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the point of Nash doing this, of Boston doing greeting them, is because if you have friends that are techies, they can make you gear, or you can get them to then hire them to get gear. That was his initial plan. Mm-hmm. And it blossoms into something else, but that's something for later episodes for us to discuss.
Actually, speaking of which, that does lead us into our next episode, session 31, that is titled, What's a Date Among Friends? Where Fen follows up on Charlotte's instructions to meet her at a specific location to gather some more intel on what their next moves are going to be and how to kind of better infiltrate. In which during that time, Nash kind of separates from the party and talks with his parole officer about kind of next moves and what's going on there and situations with documentation.
Gross paperwork.
Right. And then goes back to the party and they discuss plans on next moves. They consider pranks where Boston tries to cast magic on Fen in some capacity, which results in a slight confrontation, but was pretty quickly resolved. And then Nash and Boston head into the competition park again, where they meet Amelia, who was the winner of said competition. Then Fen, while they're there, offers to help Amelia get into Auroran with that competition money that she had won and see if there is any potential for her growing her skills, and also potentially a little bit of more than information gathering between Boston and Amelia. So, my lovely husband, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Boston's asexual. He does not. This literally was just a way to increase friendship with a potential contact. To anyone else, it would look like a date. If I was in the situation and I saw it happen, I thought it would have also been a potential date. Wasn't a date. It was just two people appreciating someone's victory. They met that same day and they just hung out. That's all it was. And I believe what happened was Fen made a comment insulting Boston, so he tried to cast command and Fen cast counterspell.
Yes.
I think that's what happened.
That was.
And Boston, like, you're really spending your only third level spell. This is like, yeah, because I'm petty. I'm like, well, I'm at least glad you're aware. And that's when I went to go talk to Amelia, because Amelia isn't a terrible person.
So
Something like that. It's hard to say.
who's to
Sounds like
say?
you have a high opinion of her.
But that does lead us into our next episode. Brett, if you want to go over that one.
Yes. After the date, Ramita starts questioning Boston about the plans he might have with this young woman, Amelia, which there are none, but Ramita doesn't believe that. And Ramita also tried to get Amelia with Nash. I remember that specifically.
Granny was just on a matchmaking sort of kick.
Yeah.
There was
But not for
Fenn,
Boston.
Nash.
It just wasn't Boston. Like, why would you want to hang out with him? And he's like, I'm sorry. But amidst all that, Ramita kind of starts going down her own memory lane and showing photographs of times past where Nash recognizes Viper, and that's kind of a little bit of a or if that wasn't it. It was because this happened a couple different times. Fenn sees a younger Nash in some of these like potential photos, kind of like Facebook posts where like this is the fighting team that this person went against. And there's a potentially could have been Nash. It's not been brought up since. After that, they decided to get a few drinks at the local hangout that Boston went to earlier, where they get to see a bit more of Boston's work life and the kind of people he hangs around. It's interesting. Because in that case, Boston was genuinely flirty with the bartender. And also, it's a bit tense also because Baldric, apparently even with some of his augmentations he's done, is still recognizable to a lot of the hunters in this area. So, as the night ends and people are getting drunker and more intoxicated, I should know how to speak English. They kind of decide what's to come next and try to make sure that Aldrich is safer and he's not as easily recognizable, and also how to resolve that issue because their bounty was still out and had not been resolved yet. Yeah. It felt like there was a lot of tension in that episode for not a real reason, in my opinion. If like someone dramatically changes their face, I feel like that should be enough. Because, like, if you put glasses and a hat on, most people won't be able to recognize you.
But tension.
But why?
I mean, to be fair, the bounty on Rick was extraordinarily high.
Yes.
They like Rick is a big ticket item, and there aren't a lot of automatons that are just automatons that you see walking around among civilization that don't necessarily have that look like they have their own agenda going.
Well, and the other side of it, this is the way I interpreted it as a player, is every once in a while when you have like a high bounty person or like someone that like when there's a big hunt, nationwide hunt for some sort of criminal or something like that, you get lots of false calls that people are like kind of close, but not really. So a lot of people will jump to, oh, that's the guy, and they look nothing alike.
Sure.
And so I think
that's why the whole
some
lineup
of
thing
that as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the way it worked in my head. But yeah.
But yeah.
But we were able to make it home. And that's about where session 32 ends off, and we'll pick up on session 33, which we call Burritos and Brawling, which sounds
BB
like
if you would.
It sounds like a perfect time. It really does.
Honestly.
Burritos and Brawling has a sort of hectic start, right? Like after that night, we make it home. Everybody's fine. Everybody's safe. We go to bed. Boston has an early morning meetup with Amelia. And so gets up early and has this sort of scary text message. And almost cryptic in it. We're not sure 100% sure what's going on, but we know, oh no, they need help now. So the whole crew loads up in the Rickmobile and we tear off to their workshop, which is like in an old temple. And it's to the point that Baldric decides to crash the Rickmobile into the front of the building. Instead of us getting out and trying to knock on the door, they just try to head straight in,
A-team style, just through
wrecking
the wall.
wrecking the Rickmobile, which causes lots of problems. And so when we get in there, the party finds a sort of chaotic scenario where Tilly, one of Amelia's friends, and another one of the competitors from the tech competition, had created this security robot. And the security robot went wild on her. And so the two sort of nerdy tech folks are trying to get the robot back under control, and it's not going well. And so our party has to step in and, drop an elbow on the robot. Boston ultimately vanquishes the mechanical menace.
If I recall, I rip out its heart like I'm in a game of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, it was a super cool moment in front of the not romantic interest at all. And after the chaos, Amelia and Boston get some quiet time together, where they actually go and get burritos. They do give one to Nash, which is nice. And basically, the party spies on them while they go on a walk and talk breakfast that casual bystanders could think is a date, but Boston slash Brett will insist it was not a date. But this is the type of thing that the talking face was invented to cover.
Yes.
You're also forgetting the whole, while Boston is trying to calm down this very antisocial, very nervous wreck of a person that is Amelia, the rest of the party is talking to Tilly, who's like, that was awesome. I want to hire you guys to wreck more of my stuff.
Yeah, Tilly
That also happens.
Tilly does put us on speed dial to maybe be contract security robot testers, which is a cool thing. Like if somebody's like, hey, I'm going to pay you to come and punch this thing for me a few times. You're like, yeah, sure. Done.
So what Boston was doing, and during his paladin training, Amelia was just traumatized. Like, her best friend's life work just came to life and almost killed her. So Boston's like, let's get her out of that situation area that's not safe, get some food, and just walk and try to help calm her down, because she was having a panic attack that entire time. Could have been a date, but wasn't a date.
Good guy, Boston, just doing the mostest.
Doing the Lord's work, Lathander's work even.
Yep, nice guy, Boston.
Yeah, definitely the sweetest guy in the entire party. Yeah.
But that does lead us into our next session, session 34, which is titled Set Up Shop. This is where Ramita and Nash return after said burritos had been acquired, and Nash expresses a strong desire to get a tattoo. Rick at this time needs a good amount of time, about 12 hours, to fix the Rickmobile, so they decide to tow it and get a rental car in the meantime. The party then discussed the importance of not ruining things for Boston and Amelia, so that way, there's a good relationship there, friendship-wise, don't need to tarnish any friendships there. They talk about that and they investigate the tattoo parlor that they want to go to and see if they have any other special accommodations they can make for potentially other party members. But during this time, Boston takes Amelia to his office. And they talk about, what their next steps are, if there's any way that they can help make more of connections. And then afterwards, after that kind of, talk is done, Boston returns back to the Bodega Street team, where Nash pulls him aside and they have a heart-to-heart talk about Nash and his true identity, and what is going on with that.
Yeah, so to give obviously our viewers, if you've got time, go back and watch all the episodes. It's awesome. But this is meant for those who can't, of course, right? So for those of you who can't, Nash has an assumed identity because of the very public nature in which he was arrested. He was a public figure in his fighting life. His original name is Marcus Murphy. and he reveals that to the party. He feels like he's been lying to them and been dishonest, and needs to be upfront with them. And so he's still planning to go by Nashville, but he basically bought the name Nashville Finnegan Thompson, or NFT,
Yeah.
from somebody with Bitcoin in prison.
Sure. If memory serves, Boston did not handle this, like, he either handled this too gracefully or didn't seem like he cared. Because Boston's like, I was already aware because you had filed the paperwork with your legal name, but you didn't want to be called that, so why would I, like, bring that up? And Nash was like, but he's like, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, it was the name equivalent of like coming out to your friends being like, "Hey, I'm gay," and like, "We know."
Yeah.
And you're like,
So my
okay.
thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was meant to show Boston's either lack of empathy or caring, or just like, that's your life, I'm not gonna like ruin that for you. That's what you want to do. Fine. Could have been handled better, but Boston's not a delicate person.
Never has been, never will be.
He does not. He's not graceful either. He's got the gracefulness of a brick being thrown through a window, or the Rickmobile going through a wall.
Love it.
All right, but that does lead us into session 35. Brett, will you take us down?
Yes, session 35. It's don't be sad, be a part of Team Tattoo, or just Team Tattoo. After the kind of opening up from Nash, Boston really is curious about exactly how the entire group will be handled, in financially, and also going through all different countries, because this is not just a one and done thing. They're going to be traveling for a long time, and this is getting more and more complicated, much more than it was originally when it was just a church bombing, which is already very complicated. That's what happened. The guy who warranted tattoos in Boston agrees that tattoos might be a good idea. He actually needs to get some of his worked on. And he knows a guy. They arrest, and then they actually run into one of Ramita's grandchildren, Maddock, a Goliath, a half giant. Because why not? Things are discussed while tattoos are did, and they actually go catch up with some of Ramita's family, or their discussion of that, while Fen gets contacted by their older sibling about politics of the family and potential complications, because family is never easy, and it can't be in D&D, because where's the fun in that?
Yeah, this, I will say, Nash has a little bit of hurt from this episode, because he's like, let's go get a team tattoo, and everyone goes yes, and then it's just Ramita, Nash, and Baldric who get the team logo of the Bodega Street team tattooed on them, whereas Boston and Fen decide they're too good for being a part of a group and having a found family and love in general. And so,
well, apparently Boston's got that taken care of, for the record. He's got Amelia. Why doesn't he do guys? But no, what Boston's tattoo specifically, he got it for the death of Scully, which is where he pulled up his shirt and you saw there was a tally mark system for potential deaths that are now being turned into flowers, which is what he got.
Yeah.
So he had a reason to come here as well. And I don't think he had the time to get the other tattoo as well, because of how he's making all his tallies look like flowers, or sunflowers in this case. So maybe next time they get a two, he'll get it. But he had to do some cleanup on one of his previous ones. No ill intent towards Nash, even though Nash, is a big old baby, big old softy.
He was like, let's go do a thing together. Right, and everyone sat at a family table, and then two people sat at corner booths, like far away from everybody else. It's fine. We all ate at the same restaurant, right? That counts.
Absolutely, yeah.
They just pretended they didn't.
Similar menus.
Yeah.
Maddock even tried to get the team tattoo. I think Maddock actually did get
He did.
The Baldric Street or the Baldric, the Bodega Street team tattooed. That's a heck of a slip up.
Yeah, and that Rev will never let that down. He's like, "We got tattoos after me," and we're like, "No." He's like, "No, that's what happened. It's canon. Tony never lies." But at the end of the tattoos, the party does break up a little bit, preparing to go meet Charlotte, and it's going to get messy. Is all I have to say.
Yep.
Yeah, that next arc is wild.
Yep. And speaking of which, that does kind of bring us to the conclusion of this arc and this episode. We can find out more about that on our next episode of Role4Recap, which will go over sessions 36 through 43. So it's a big one. So we hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, catch up on those videos that we have posting on our YouTube. That will have all of the information. Every part of that session will be posted on there. And you guys will get to see all of the reactions as the world builds and as they continue on this journey together. But otherwise, any other closing statements, guys?
Can't wait to have
Roll
you
for
guys-
extra hats with this recap.
Here I
I'm
was going to
sorry.
do a heart-to-heart moment. And this is the group. This is the vibe constantly. But I can't wait to have you guys catch up with us to live. Where we're at right now, it is a great story that we have told over the last. Well, we are live almost at 2 years of recording. And it is wild, the stories that we've told. I mean, you saw what we did in this episode.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to have you there.
This last session, though, 55, 56 was awesome.
56, yeah.
56, it was so
Super
good.
cool. It's super cool. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you taking the time to join us on these. We really appreciate you, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.